Fraud and bribery. President Grant was elected for his second term in 1872. He was considered a very honest man and was never found of guilt or any wrongdoings. He grew up as a horse farmer, so he had no political background while coming into office. As president, he never realized that people would take advantage of him to gain political advantage. Most of his appointees turned out to be dishonest and corrupt. In 1872, a series of scandals associated with Grant boiled over. The New York Sun exposed a construction company who had been taking out large profits from the government railroad contracts. The credit mobilier affair involved many Republicans, including Grant's first vice president, Schuyler Colfax. The next conspiracy exposed was the whiskey ring. This was when Internal Revenue collectors accepted bribes from whiskey distillers to avoid paying taxes. This costed the government millions of dollars in revenue. General Orville E. Babcock was supposedly one of the 238 people associated with the scandal. The president refused to believe the remarks and chose to help him escape conviction. In 1876, the Secretary of War, William W. Belknap, had taken bribes from merchants. When word got out, Belknap had to resign. The public had also learned that the Secretary of the Navy had also taken bribes from shipbuilders, and the Secretary of the Interior had taken bribes from land speculators. It was evident that there was widespread dishonesty and corruption in the Grant administration. Republican unity shattered. A group of Missouri Republicans were angered by the corruption. They banded together to create the Liberal Republican Party in 1872. This party was to be based upon honest and an efficient government. While the 1872 elections moved forward, the Liberal Republicans nominated Horace Greeley as their candidate. Greeley was a pre-Civil War abolitionist who had a past job as an editor for the New York Times. The Democrats also needed to nominate a candidate, so they also nominated Greeley, due to his belief that the former wanted slaves should fend for themselves. Even though he had called the Confederates thieves, murderers, drunkards, and liars, they still kept him as their candidate. Greeley had lost the presidency to Grant by a large margin. Greeley was so exhausted by the campaign that he ended up dying a few weeks after the elections. Panic of 1873. A depression hit the nation in 1873 because investors had become convinced that the business profits would increase since the economy had been expanding since the end of the Civil War. Investors borrowed enormous amounts of money and built new faculties. This led to a series of financial failures that led panic throughout Wall Street, starting with the bankruptcy of Cook's firm. Currency dispute. A dispute about currency followed the Panic of 1873. This dispute had its roots in the Civil War. During the Civil War, the government issued greenbacks, paper money not backed in the equal value in gold. After the war, many financial experts advocated the withdrawing of the greenbacks and to go back to currency backed by gold. In contrast, farmers and manufacturers wanted the government to issue more greenbacks because the thought of having easy money would help them pay off their debt. Instead, the government reduced the number of greenbacks in circulation. Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court decisions led to charges in the court siding with old pro-slavery ways. The decisions undermined both the 14th and 15th Amendments. The leading Republicans in Congress proposed to strip the court of power to review national laws or to require two-thirds majority to rule the federal laws unconstitutional. But for the Mississippi v. Johnson, 1867, and the Georgia v. Stanton, 1868, the court refused requests from the Johnson-organized state governments for restraining the president and his Secretary of War from enforcing the Reconstruction Acts. Northern support fades. The Supreme Court rejected the Reconstitution policy in the 1870s. Northern voters averted their attention to events like the Panic of 1873 and the corruption in Grant's administration. Although political violence continued, some people in the North started to turn against the Reconstruction policies. All support for the policy was decreasing. Republicans started to part away from their commitment to the policy. Northerners started to believe that the government was not capable of causing the needed and moral and social changes needed for former slaves to start over in the South.